Alright, ladies and gents, welcome back to the playthrough of Final Fantasy VI. This is part 7, and we pick up right at the beginning of the fierce battle we're about to encounter in Narshe. We have all three party members, or all three, I guess, small parties that have returned after their scenarios. They are now back in Narshe, and we are about to defend the Esper from an onslaught from Kefka and his cronies. So we're at the top. Basically, at this point, we have the options of equipping all of our characters with the best stuff. Take your time to individually do that. I like to put all my characters in the front row just because I want to deal max damage. Whenever you're ready, go ahead and tell Bannon that you're prepared. You have the option to have Mog and the Moogles ask if you need help. No, we don't. Basically, you have to form 3 different groups here. And the idea is very similar to when we had to help Locke defend Terra from an onslaught of guards. Same concept, except here the stakes are much higher. Now, I prefer to just have one killer team, so I put Terra and Celeste in the front because they are my magic users and they can both use cure and heal spells without wasting items. I'm also going to put Sabin and Edgar in that front party because they are the high damage dealers right now. I'm going to put all the other party members in different teams because honestly it doesn't really matter. The way that we're going to approach this, it's not going to matter at all. We're never going to use them. And Kefka comes in. It seems like he knows what's about to happen here. And you thought that first battle was tough. Yeah, check that out. The stakes are considerably higher. Now, if you play this section legitimately, it can be pretty tough. You can go through a whole bunch of items, but look what we're going to do. We're going to go straight down. We're going to take the fight right to him and his cronies. We're going to go right through the heart of his defense and into Kefka himself. Now, thankfully, I will say we get quite a bit of luck here. We got a couple preemptive attacks that's going to help us take down these enemies very, very fast. So, whenever you're going through these fights, obviously, be aggressive. Use your attacks. Don't be afraid to use magic spells here. It's not going to be so bad that you're going to go through all your MP before you get to, Kefka himself. So check it out. We can already see Kefka in our field of vision after only one fight. Yeah, be aggressive, get down there, and don't worry about the other Kefka cronies getting up there and catching the other unprepared party members. It's not going to happen. If you're fast, you've got absolutely nothing to worry about. Again, be aggressive, use your fierce magic spells, use ice, use fire, use your blitzes, use auto crossbow, all that stuff. You will get to Kefka. You don't have anything much to worry about here. Now, as I was saying, and as you can see, we have both Terra and Celeste in this party, and that's important because not only are they effective damage dealers with magic, but because, as I said, they can also cast Cure. And at this junction, I don't know, if you were smart and you stocked up on your potions, then you may not have to worry about doing that. But I would much rather prefer to just have a magic user cast Cure than waste GP and waste an item for curing. Now, we're pretty much there. We just have to get through one final guy running back and forth and then Kefka himself. Now, we may have to tackle one of these guys on the sides. And eventually we start getting into tougher enemies here. Now we have heavy armor. And in case you didn't catch what that was, because I actually didn't the first time, he casted a magic barrier, which basically reflects any magic spells that you toss at him. Unfortunately, the reflected magic doesn't deal a whole lot of heavy damage, and that's actually an important concept to be aware of right now because it will come into effect later in the game when you will have to have Reflect cast on all of your party members. The nice thing about Reflect, since we're talking about it, is that any reflected magic spell that bounces back at you doesn't deal 100% full damage. It's only a fraction of what it could be. And while that's important to consider now, it's also important to consider later in the game when that really comes into play. But that won't be until the later second half of this game. So we have another one of these battles to get through, and fortunately we caught the fact that the magic barrier was put up, and we're not going to be stupid and cast fire on him now. So it's going to be pure physical attacks. The only real time you should be casting magic now would be for curative spells, which I think we do happen to do once here. But it's not that big of a deal. Just keep casting physical attacks, and you've got nothing to worry about here. And I don't know why, you probably noticed this, but there have been a number of occasions throughout this Narshe battle where my blitz inputs weren't going through. And I don't know why, sometimes those quarter circle, half circle, full circle motions don't always register on the controllers. So one thing you can consider doing if you're going to use blitzes is to use obvious ones with straight inputs like the suplex. Those are good. Later on, Sabin will get a blitz input which will allow for healing. That's a good one to use, so I recommend using the suplex XY down up A if you're going to end up using any kind of blitz attacks. Oh, we got kind of unlucky there. We almost managed to sneak right by the Rider and go straight to Kefka. That would have been something. So this is Rider. He's kind of a sub-boss, I guess you could say. And obviously, he's only one character, but he does deal substantially more damage than all of the other cronies. But nothing you can't handle. Just approach him, tackle him the same way you would anybody else. He's not that big of a deal. Just keep hitting, hitting, hitting. He will go down, and then eventually we will get into the Kefka boss fight itself. Yeah, as you can see, he does pretty significant damage with a single attack. That's, what, 30-40%, depending on how leveled you are. 35% damage on one single physical attack. That's pretty serious, so don't be afraid to use curative spells here. In fact, you may have to. And then you can use Edgar and Sabin to focus on attacking here. That's pretty much going to do it. Alright, now move down quickly. Don't dilly-dally because, you know, there's always a chance that one of those other cronies could catch you. Now, when you get to Kefka, you have some options here. You can put your attackers in the front, or you could just put them in the back. Honestly, I don't think it matters very much, because Kefka is going to use a bunch of magic spells, and obviously, in that case, it doesn't matter what row they're in. Now, here he is. He's got about 3,000 HP. Basically, that's 3 blitz attacks from Sabin. We'll take him down. Or not 3, sorry, 10 blitz attacks. I wish it was 1,000 at this point. So use your most powerful stuff. Man, I keep having that incorrect blitz stuff. My controller is not functioning very well today. So just keep attacking hard. One thing you do want to remember, as I said, with this fight, Kefka does like to use magic attacks a lot. He will use Ice 2, which is a pretty powerful magic attack for this junction of the game. So using Celeste's Runic Blade is a very, very smart option. Unfortunately, I didn't get it out in time, and it resulted in a one-shot on Edgar, so yeah, thanks Celeste, you're so helpful. Alright, so we're going to have to bring Edgar back with a Phoenix down because we don't have anybody who knows the life spell just yet. So we did get it out, and Celeste was able to absorb that and gain some MP, which is nice. So we're going to bring Edgar back with a Phoenix down, and we're going to focus mainly on physical attacks where we can. Sabin's going to use his blitzes. Edgar will use his auto crossbow. You can't confuse him, which is unfortunate. It'd be pretty cool if you could. And pretty good damage on Kefka for right now. Yeah, use Cure when you can. If you have the Runic Blade out, you're going to have to use potions to avoid having that curative spell absorbed, which I think is kind of annoying. I think the Runic Blade should only be used and useful against, you know, actual enemy attacks, not your actual, your own party's magic spells. Very annoying, but it is what it is. It's kind of a balancer, so to speak. Now, this is really, really bad. Kefka has the poison spell, and not only does it deal damage, but inflicts damage over time, as it's called. And you have to not only cure the damage, but you have to cure the ailment. So anytime that happens, go ahead and use an antidote or the antidote spell. And there we go. I think we got him there. He says he'll be back, so unfortunately we can't kill him outright. He just escapes. Now, check this out. We win the battle, and we win a Peace Ring, which is very effective at stopping Berserk and Muddle, which are pretty ugly and annoying status ailments. Boom, boom. All right, that gets rid of all of the enemy party members. We have successfully staved off Kefka and his crew, and we're going to head up, and we're going to check out this Esper here, and we're going to see what we can learn more about it. So this is the one that we originally saw back in the beginning of the game. It was moved to the far back starting point of the game in Narshe. And basically Terra is going to have another interaction with this Esper, which is known as Tritalk, which I think it was announced way back when. But now we know who the Esper is, and we're going to see what exactly is happening here. Whoa, pretty explosive interaction to say the least. I know I mentioned we were going to skip some cutscenes here and shove them aside, but this is a pretty important one for the sake of this game, so I am going to let this one play out at full length, and then we'll see exactly what happens and what we have to do at this point. So Terra is having another interaction. She's learning and feeling some things from the Esper. What exactly is going on? She's getting pretty aggressive, moving toward the Esper, thinking it can help learn who she is. Yes, we know it's an Esper. We can feel its mind. I don't think that's going to happen, Edgar. Sorry. Oh, here we go. Once again. Is she going to explode? Ooh, what's this? Is that an Esper I see? Did she turn into an Esper? Whoa. flying off into the distance. And did she turn into a shooting star? What exactly has happened here? The rest of our party is essentially wiped out, or so it seems. And off she goes into the sky. And she is flying all over the place, it looks like. Does she have control of her thoughts? Does she have control of herself? Is she being called by somebody else? What in the world is going on here? Well, we don't really know, but we're about to learn a lot more in this next upcoming minute of cutscene here. So flashback, remember the beginning of the game, Tara was the one in the bed. Now Locke jumps out of the bed. And they're all learning exactly what fate has befallen Tara. And it looks like she's flown off. Celeste believes that she has turned into an Esper. And is that what really happened here? We don't really know. We're learning a little bit more. And it looks like for the most part, our party members are okay, aside from Tara, of course. And we're learning that Tara has some connection to the Espers. Again, is she an Esper? Is she part human, part Esper? What exactly is the deal with her? We don't really know. But we do know at this point we need to set out to find where she is and get her back into the party if that's possible. So what's happening here is they're deciding what they have to do. We know we have to help her, but we also know that Narshe needs to be protected with Bannon. So we're going to be splitting into two different groups here. One is going to go straight to Figaro Castle, which will then go underground to across the desert, and the other party will stay behind in Narshe. Now the party you need to take is very specific. Take the 4 members you see here: Locke, Celeste, Edgar, and Sabin. And those are mainly for story purposes. If you leave one of them behind, you will not learn as much as you should learn about those characters' subplots here. Edgar and Sabin are critical because you're going to Figaro Castle, and those two are brothers of that castle, so that would make sense. Locke has a sub-story for another section you'll be approaching with Kolingen Town coming up very soon. And Celeste is important, again, because, of course, she is a magic user, and it's always nice to have at least one of those in your party when possible. Cyan, it kind of stinks to leave him behind. I know he's strong and tough, but honestly, let's be real. His sword tech is slow, and you have to wait for it to charge up in the first place. Gaw, again, I don't use him much at all. So we finally, at long last, for the first time ever in this game, we have the ability to have free roam in the town of Narshe, and we can look around and buy stuff. And we're going to do that because we have the ability to buy some pretty decent stuff for this point in the game. We're going to upgrade all of the weapons and armory that we possibly can right now. So we're going to upgrade a ton of armor. You're going to see a little bit of looking around and repositioning of stuff and armory and equipment. So pardon the delay here. We're going to basically be spending a lot of GP to do this, and we're going to be doing a lot of armor swapping. And don't be upset or ashamed if you don't have all the GP that you need. Remember, you can sell off stuff that you don't need. You're only going to be really concentrating on 4 to 5 party members at a time, so it's okay to sell off stuff that you don't need, unless it's like a critical rare piece of stuff, and you'll know what that is. It's very evident when you get to it in that part of the game and the story. So we're buying a lot of iron armor. This is the Iron Age of the game, I guess you could say. So buy all the iron equipment that you can, and then go ahead and equip it on all your party members. If you don't have the GP, sell the stuff you don't need. And then we're going to go ahead, leave that, and we're going to move over to the weaponry store. And if there's anything that we don't have yet, we're going to buy it right now in the weapons shop. Now, we have a couple very important weapons here, the Flail and the Full Moon. They have different icons, as you can see. The significance of these two items is that they both cause the same amount of damage from the back row. And that's important because if you sit in the back row, you only take half the amount of damage that you normally would. So definitely equip these items when it makes sense. And it does right here, of course. So we're going to put that on Locke. We're also going to equip that onto Celeste, which will allow her to take half damage and deal full damage. Now, the only problem with equipping back row weapons on Celeste is that she will not be able to use her Runic Blade special skill to absorb magic attacks. That is only possible when she's holding a sword item. So do keep that in mind. You're basically trading that off for increased attack power and decreased damage. I don't think it's that big of a deal right now, so we're going to go ahead and take the chance and put the Flail and Full Moon on both of the relevant characters here. And I think we have just about everything that we need, so we're going to go ahead and equip what is necessary here. We're going to put both Locke and Celeste into the back row. We got everything that we need, and if you need to, you can take a moment at this point to, stop at the inn, refill your health. And actually, come to think of it, you don't have to do that, because if you remember why, remember this little place, the School of Knowledge, remember this little magic pot? Auto refill all of your life and MP, so don't even worry about it. Buy items if you need to, and then leave Narshe once again, and we are going to head south to Figaro Castle, and we are going to go underneath ground. We're going to take it over across well, not really a continent, but just underneath a lake river to another section of the game we haven't been to yet. And we have really simplistic enemies. For this point in the game, we're going to absolutely murder and destroy them based on the weapons and stats that we have right now. Yeah, let's suplex a scorpion. Why not? Just for fun. I always get a kick out of that blitz. Alright, so we're just basically blazing through. Ooh, that's a nice little boomerang attack. I always like that one. And we're just going to take out the last little Stingray Sandray here and continue on to Figaro Castle. And let's see what we come up with here when we finally get there. Alright, and we peruse on through the desert and we finally get back to Figaro Castle. In terms of story, there's going to be an interesting development with a cutscene here now that we have Sabin and Edgar back together here. And unfortunately, because this is a cutscene that has very little to no interaction, we are going to bypass it and let it go through, simply not to bog down the action gameplay. Now, we are moving a little slower, so we are going to equip our second set of sprint shoes to make the gameplay go a little bit faster. We're going to go back in here where we have Edgar's tool assortment. Now, it's important that you have Edgar with you because he will make these prices much less expensive. Now, check this out. We have two new items to buy. There is a flash and a drill. Yes, you do want both. Trust me, especially the drill. Do what you can. Hopefully you have enough GP available to buy what you need. But if not, sell off the stuff that you don't need. And this is me basically taking an inventory of what we have and what we no longer need. Selling off stuff that we don't need. Honestly, these things are not that big of a deal. I often like to keep a lot of those dirks and sometimes those lesser powered swords because they're nice for Shadow to have to throw in a pinch if you need something with a heavier hit. But it's not really necessary. That's why you have the shurikens and the tack stars and the throwing stars. So we end up getting enough that we need, and now we're going to buy the drill. And the drill is a very, very nice item. It pierces through any defense that the enemy has and deals a substantially high hit, especially for this point in the game. And you're really going to want it. Now, as for the flash tool, it's very similar to the auto crossbow in that it will hit all enemies, but the one major exception being is that there is a chance that it can inflict the dark status ailment, meaning that all enemies will have a chance to miss when they hit, which is a very nice thing to have. So basically, just like auto crossbow, but it hits a little bit harder. And here we're going to go ahead and take a little snooze. Since we're here, we had a little bit of low health. We're going to go ahead and let it go, and now the cutscene is going to play out, and we are going to speed through this, as I mentioned, at 4 times speed. For anyone who has not seen this game before, and especially this cutscene is showing what happened prior to Sabin leaving the castle. Basically, Sabin and Edgar's father passes away due to old age or illness, whatever it might be, and Sabin gets very emo, gets very emotional, and he basically says, I'm going to run away, I'm through with this stuff. And Edgar does everything in his power to stop him from leaving, so he flips a coin to get him to stay. And the coin goes up into the air just like that, and the cutscene will be over very shortly. Basically, they reconvene, and the brothers are back together. They're whole. They're ready to fight as one once again. It's a pretty good cutscene, good music for the time too. So now we're back in, and we've essentially done everything we need to do for this point. So we're going to head back to the entrance, and we're going to make a left turn here. And right here, we're going to talk to this old guy, and what we're going to do, believe it or not, we're going to go underground. The last time this happened, we were fleeing from Kefka, but now we're going to stay in the castle. And this castle is going to traverse underground, through the desert, under the mountain range, and pop up in yet another desert. And we are going to be very close to a number of towns here, and a landmark that you're going to see. So this is a very critical point for exploration, as well as improving your weapons and armory. This is a nice place to be in the game right now. Good place to level. And no, you can't go down there just yet. That's for a little bit later in the game. That's a very difficult part of the game when we get to it. So thankfully, we can't go down there yet. Alright, we should have everything that we need right now. But just to show you, we're going to arrange everything. Yep, we have all of our tools. We looked at the flash. As you can see, it can blind multiple enemies, and that drill will ignore any enemy defense and hit for massive damage on one enemy. Very, very effective tool to have. So as we leave the castle, ultimately we are headed for a couple different towns. First of all, we have the town of Kolingen, and this is critical for the fact that it has a couple of different places for upgrading weapons and armory and items. But there's also a house here that will expand upon a storyline for Locke, and we'll look at that shortly. Now we have weaponry that we basically had a chance to buy in the previous town. Thankfully, we've already bought it and got it. We don't have to worry about it. Now we also have the chance to improve, our armor and our shields and our helmets and stuff, but we've pretty much already done that, so there's nothing to see here. This last guy over here is a place to buy items in case you don't have anything that we need here. We don't have any of the Revivifies just yet, but we don't really need them until a little bit later in the game, I'd say past the halfway point. So we're going to leave there and go into this house on the left-hand side, and this is where the sub-story for Locke picks up. Locke says he wasn't able to save her. Save who? Who is he referring to? Well, we're about to find out. This cutscene's not nearly as long as the first one, so I'll let it play out for a little bit. So there's a girl named Rachel here. I'm guessing those two were friends, maybe even in a serious relationship at the time. And it looks like nothing good is going to happen here. Is something going to fall on them? Nope, that bridge is going to give way and Rachel's going to fall down into the pit. And we can see something pretty nasty obviously happened here. Thankfully, Rachel didn't die, but she is back in bed. She comes to, but what ends up happening here? Well, she's got amnesia, it looks like. Not a very fun thing to have. So Locke ends up getting kicked out of the house by Rachel's dad. And that's basically the end of that relationship. Ooh, said yes. You can only assume they were about to get married. Pretty unfortunate situation. Well, that's pretty much going to do it for Locke's previous relationship and for this cutscene. So now there's a random guy that comes up and tells him, hey, you know what? Your time here is over. You got to take off, make the best of it. And that's exactly what Locke's going to do. He's going to leave the town of Kolingen and Rachel for good. This is probably the most heartbreaking thing for Locke. He finds out that Rachel perished and that she had actually said his name before she passed away. Had he just stuck around, who knows what could have happened. But anyway, that's the end of that story. Now again, you don't have to bring Locke along with you when you leave Narshe, but again, if you don't, you won't see this little cutscene and you won't learn about this story from Rachel here. So it is highly recommended that you bring this specific party along. So now we've pretty much seen the story. There's one other building we're going to take a look at, and that's the one over here on the far right side. Mixing curious herbs. Yeah, probably smokes a whole bunch of curious herbs too. Well, let's take a look and see what's in that house. I can only guess. Got some kooky music in here. And ooh. Is that Rachel? Your treasure's quite safe. Ooh, I think he is in fact referring to Rachel. Wow, so basically, it's kind of like the story of Sleeping Beauty. She is in permanent stasis, permanently asleep, and she will stay that way forever and ever. At least we can only assume. So we can see those special herbs we thought that old dude was smoking are apparently life-saving for Rachel here. And as we kind of read a little bit deeper into this story here, we kind of now have a better understanding as to why Locke thinks so deeply of Celeste here and why he always wanted to protect and save her. It's exactly why, because he failed Rachel. Well, we basically leave here. Check this out. Celeste comes back down, and she understands why Locke feels the same way now. Alright, so we end up leaving this building, and we're going to leave the town of Kolingen and continue on with the story now. We got pretty much everything we need, so let's go on out back into the Outworld here. Alright, now remember, the main task we have right now is to track down Terra, and I do know exactly where we have to go. We're going to have to head south on the map here, but before we do that, we're going to head north to a small town, and before we get there, we got this small preemptive fight we have to deal with a couple of vultures. These vultures are kind of annoying. They have a special attack called the Shim Sham, which can deal significant damage to one player here. So take these things out as quick as you possibly can, lest you be in for a world of hurt and pain. Man, I love that boomerang attack that Locke has. It just looks so awesome, even with the 16-bit stuff. Alright, we're going to continue on north, and we're going to see a significant section of the game here. Not right now, but I would say just take note of it, where it is, what it looks like, because later in the game, this will be one of the highlights of the game in terms of finding significant rare items and trading of items. So that's what we're going to take a look at right now before heading down south to continue tracking Terra. We're going to test out Flash. We already tested out Drill, as you can see, and Drill does significant damage to one party member. Flash is going to deal damage to all members with a chance of inflicting the blind or dark status ailment. And unfortunately, in my experience, that dark status rarely ever works. I only really use Flash when I want to damage all enemies here. The auto crossbow is basically inept and worthless at this point. Alright, now we get to this small little house here. Now, as soon as you get in there, go to the pot on the left and immediately grab the hero ring that is inside that pot. What is the hero ring? Well, it basically equips a relic that will increase the strength and magic of whoever is using that particular accessory. So, consider who you got, and right now, the only magic user we have is Celeste, so if we put that on her, combined with the earrings, that's going to significantly boost her magic, strength, and damage and healing potential. So yeah, we absolutely want to put that on her. Other than that, I tend to put it on Terra, or later in the game when other characters are able to use magic, you can put it on whoever you want. Sabin is pretty good for that relic as well. Alright, now that we have our hero ring, there's really nothing else to do in this northwestern section of the map, so we're going to continue heading back on south, down to the South Figaro Castle, or Figaro Castle I guess. Continue on down south past it, and we're going to move on to the next part of the game. We're going to continue looking for Terra. And where exactly is she? Well, I know, but I'm not going to reveal the secret just yet. But on the way, we're going to encounter a couple of different towns, and one of them, you will see, is where we're going to basically pause the game for our next checkpoint here. And on the way, we're going to have a couple, I wouldn't say impossible, but certainly more difficult or challenge increased battles on the way. You're going to see a lot more of these vultures, so we'll have a lot of chances to test out our brand new equipment. And you're going to see some other enemies in here too, like the Red Fang. And the Red Fang, they don't really hit very hard, but they have a status ailment they inflict called Rabies, which basically inflicts poison on the enemy, and that basically means you have to use the antidote spell or an antidote item to take care of yourself. So yeah, just kind of take these things down as quick as you can to avoid having to waste that stuff. And then we can continue on with the game, continue on down south, and continue on looking for Terra. You will notice your characters are going to start getting a little bit stronger on the way. You're going to acquire quite a bit of GP on the way. And there we are back to Figaro Castle. We are now continuing on south on the trek looking for Terra. We know she is down here. We've got a lot more Red Fangs. Now, something else you've probably noticed here is that we are getting quite a few preemptive attack strikes here, which is nice because it obviously gives you first strike, but that's most likely due to one of the relics that we have equipped, which will raise our preemptive attack rate. And if it isn't, we're just getting pretty dang lucky here, is all I can really say. And to be honest, I don't remember which relics I have equipped right now. I know I have a couple sprint shoes equipped, we have the hero ring, an earring or two. For all I know, we probably have some sort of relic in there that man, there's another preemptive attack strike in there. We gotta have some sort of relic in there. Whenever I fire up part 8 to start the next part of this game, I will definitely take note of the relics that we have. And we're just getting used to that suplex. Suplex and dogs, suplex and dogs, suplex and dogs. Yep, moving on, moving on, moving on down. Moving on down the mountain range. And we're getting, if you look really closely on that map, there's a small dot coming up, so we are approaching our next point here. Another preemptive, and this time it's a side attack, which will increase the damage that we get too. So preemptive attacks give you first strike, and the side attacks not only do that, but they increase the damage that you deal. We're going to do yet another suplex, and to my knowledge, I don't think it's possible to suplex any flying enemies. That wouldn't make any sense. Here's that Shim Sham I was talking about. It deals basically half of whatever damage you have. Edgar had 280, now it's down to 140. But that drill is so powerful, hitting for 400 base damage here. And we've got a Mithril Knife, which is something you don't really see very often. It's a base dagger, but we can use that for Shadow if you had him in your party for throwing, or you could just basically sell it and get some decent GP along the way. Now that dot is along the right-hand side of the mountain range, so in order to get to it, we're going to have to loop around. And we will end up getting to that dot because that actually is where we have to go to continue the Terra sub-quest here, or main quest, rather. Now here's a new enemy I don't think we've seen yet, the Mind Candy, which is basically the purple flying hornets. They're not much different from most other enemies you fought, but they do inflict a status ailment or two that you need to partake in and be aware of. So take down the Mind Candies pretty quickly when you have the option to. So aura bolts work very good. The flash is always the potential for blinding and darkening the enemies so they can't hit you. But do what you can, take them down fast. Lock's getting stronger. That's a lot of GP for one fight right now. 834 GP in one fight. I don't even think we're a quarter way into the game yet. We're continuing on down south, and there's a much larger dock coming up here, which is a town we're going to be resting in to conclude this part of the game. So we're almost there. That's going to be our pit stop, and there's quite a bit of good stuff to happen in there. There's going to be some item, weapon, and defensive upgrades we can take. So it's a good thing that we're getting all of the GP that we're getting right now. This is a good place to actually farm for gold and GP if you don't have enough. So consider that when you get down here. And ooh, Celeste learned the Imp spell, which basically allows you to turn enemies into imps, which hit for significantly less damage. I tend not to use it, but hey, whatever. Okay, so we have arrived in the town of Jidoor. Jidoor is an interesting town. It has a significant influence in the story, and you'll see a little bit why here. So we have some items here that we can buy. Ninja gear is good for Sabin, also for Shadow. We're going to buy what we need, what we can. We got quite a bit of GP here, and I would invest, anytime you have a choice between armor and weapons, I would always lean on the side of your defense, because weapons, even if you hit for less damage, it's more important that you stay alive versus hitting for higher damage. So definitely get the relics and the defensive stuff with the GP that you have. Now let's take a look at the items in terms of the weapons. Some interesting stuff here. If you have Sabin in your party, you can buy the Forged. We don't, so we'll pass on it. Sabin has a new Knuckle Claw. We'll take that. As for everything else we really have, the rest of the stuff is for Shadow, and since he's not in our party, we're not going to waste our time or our money and our GP buying that stuff. We are going to equip what we have, make our team a little bit stronger. Again, sell the stuff that you don't need if you want to continue to buy stuff. And we're going to go ahead and take a look in the inn here, see if we have anything of use. Bunch of liars in Zozo. That must be the next town we're looking for here. And in fact it is. That's going to be the next major main plot point in this story, is the town of Zozo. We will be going there, and we'll be going there in the next part of this video because we are basically out of time right now. So we've done everything that we can do up to this point because we're basically at the time limit. So for the time being, we're going to go ahead and leave this town. We're going to save on the overworld map, and we will see you in the next part of this game, which will be Part 8, I believe, of the Final Fantasy VI playthrough. Thanks for watching.